Let's talk about something that every woman needs to hear. There are just some things you should never fully reveal to a man, not because you're being dishonest, but because power lies in mystery. We live in a world that tells us if you love someone, tell them everything. But let's be real, oversharing can cost you more than you think. Today, I'm giving you 3 things that every woman should keep to herself. And trust me, this isn't about playing games, it's about protecting your power. Not everything needs to be shared. We live in a world that constantly pushes the idea that transparency is the foundation of a strong relationship. That if you truly love someone, you should open up about everything, your past, your fears, your mistakes, your dreams, your insecurities. But let's be real for a second. How many times have you shared something deeply personal only for it to be used against you later? How many times have you been completely open with someone and instead of feeling safe, you felt exposed? Vulnerability is important, but so is discernment. Not everyone deserves access to every corner of your life. The truth is, mystery is power. When you lay out every detail of who you are, what you feel, and what you've been through, you give people a map to navigate you, sometimes in ways that don't serve you. It's not about deception, it's about control. You get to decide what parts of yourself you share and when. And here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They assume that withholding certain things means you're being dishonest. But there's a difference between dishonesty and discretion. Dishonesty is lying. Discretion is knowing that some things are meant to be kept sacred, that some truths are for you alone. Think about it. When you first meet someone, the attraction is built on curiosity. You want to know more about them. They want to know more about you. But if you hand over your entire life story too soon, the curiosity fades. And it's not just about romance. This applies to friendships, business relationships, even family. People value what they have to work for. If you give them everything up front, there's nothing left for them to discover, nothing left for them to earn. And let's talk about energy. Sharing too much too soon can be emotionally exhausting. Imagine sitting across from someone and pouring your heart out, your fears, your doubts, your struggles, only to realize later that they weren't even the right person to hold that space for you. Now, instead of feeling lighter, you feel drained. Instead of feeling closer, you feel exposed. Because here's the thing, not everyone has the emotional capacity to handle your truth. Not everyone will understand your struggles, and some people will even use them against you. So many people walk around wounded, carrying the weight of trust that was misplaced. They opened up too soon, gave away too much, and now they walk carefully, guarded, afraid to let anyone in. But the solution isn't to shut everyone out. It's to be selective. It's to understand that not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every fear needs to be shared. Not every dream needs to be explained. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep certain things to yourself until you're sure the person you're sharing with is worthy of that information. Because here's the real truth. When you protect your personal space, you protect your peace. You protect your ability to move through life without constantly seeking validation, without feeling like you owe people explanations. You stop allowing others to have a say in things that only concern you. And that is freedom. That is self-respect. That is power. Your deepest insecurities are not meant for public display. They are not a gift you hand over freely, especially to someone who hasn't earned your trust. We all have insecurities, things that keep us up at night, that make us doubt ourselves, that creep into our minds in moments of weakness. Maybe it's about how you look, how smart you are, the things you've done, or the things you wish you could change. But here's what you need to understand. When you reveal those insecurities to the wrong person, you are giving them power over you. It might feel like vulnerability is the key to closeness. You think that if you share your fears, your partner will reassure you, hold you, make you feel safe. And sometimes that happens, but other times what you shared in confidence can be used against you in ways you never expected. Maybe not right away, maybe not even intentionally, but in a moment of frustration, in a moment of conflict, suddenly the thing you feared the most, the thing you trusted them with, gets thrown back in your face. And there is no pain quite like the pain of having your own self-doubt weaponized against you. When you tell someone, I don't feel beautiful, they may comfort you at first. But what happens down the line when they're angry, when they want to hurt you? Suddenly it's, well, maybe if you took care of yourself more, you'd feel better. Or when you admit, I don't feel smart enough, they may reassure you today, but tomorrow, when they want the upper hand, it turns into, this is why you don't understand anything. It's subtle at first. A little comment here, a little dig there, and before you know it, you start believing it even more than before. The reality is people, whether they mean to or not, use what they know about you to their advantage. This isn't to say that every person you meet is out to hurt you, but it is to say that not everyone is capable of handling your insecurities with care. Some people don't know how to hold that kind of responsibility. Some people are too focused on their own issues to lift you up when you need it most. And some people, whether consciously or unconsciously, will take what you've given them and use it to shift the balance of power in their favor. When you keep your insecurities to yourself, you take that power back. You create an unshakable foundation where no one, not a partner, not a friend, not even a family member, can use your own thoughts against you. You start to realize that validation doesn't need to come from anyone else. The moment you stop handing over your insecurities to someone else, you start the process of overcoming them on your own. Because here's the truth. The only person who can truly fix your insecurities is you. No amount of reassurance from another person will ever be enough if you don't believe it yourself. Confidence isn't about having no insecurities. It's about knowing that they don't define you. It's about walking into a room and knowing that no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone thinks, they don't have the power to shake you. That is a level of self-assurance that no one can touch. And that is why you don't hand over your insecurities freely. Because the moment you do, you risk giving someone else the ability to control how you see yourself. And that is a power that belongs to you alone. Your financial independence is one of the most powerful things you can have as a woman. It's not just about money. It's about control, security, and the ability to walk away from anything that no longer serves you. When you let a man know too much about your financial situation, whether you're struggling or thriving, you give him insight into a part of your life that should be yours alone to manage. Money changes dynamics. It influences relationships in ways that most people don't even realize. And when someone knows the full details of your financial situation, they may start to see you differently, even if they don't admit it. If a man believes you are completely dependent on him financially, it shifts the power balance. Maybe not right away, but over time, it creates an unspoken understanding that you need him more than he needs you. And here's where it gets dangerous. When someone thinks you can't leave, they start treating you differently. They may not mean to, they may not even realize they're doing it, but the moment a person believes you have no choice but to stay, they stop trying as hard. They stop valuing you the same way. They start making decisions for you, assuming you'll go along with them because after all, where else would you go? On the flip side, if a man knows you are financially successful, That can also create problems. Some men feel intimidated by a woman who is financially independent. They may say they admire it, but deep down, they struggle with the idea of not being the provider. They start questioning their role in the relationship, wondering if they are still needed. Some men will try to compete with you, constantly needing to prove they make more, that they're still in control. Others may become complacent, assuming that since you have money, you should be the one handling things. Suddenly, you're paying for more than your fair share, footing bills, covering expenses, and before you know it, your independence is being used against you. Then there are the ones who see your financial stability as an opportunity, the ones who are drawn to what you have rather than who you are. They admire your success, but only because they see what they can gain from it. Maybe it starts with small things, letting you pay for dinner here and there, borrowing money just this once. Then suddenly they're relying on you for more and more. And before you realize it, you're not just financially independent, you're financially responsible for someone else. And the worst part, the moment you stop giving, the moment you set boundaries, they start pulling away, making you feel guilty for not helping them. That is not love. That is someone using you. The key is balance. You should never make a man feel like you need him financially, but you also shouldn't let him see exactly how much you have. Keep some details to yourself. Whether you have a little or a lot, that is your business. Your money is your safety net, your freedom, your ability to make choices that are best for you. The moment you let someone else into that space without boundaries, you open the door to influence, control, and sometimes even manipulation. Financial independence isn't just about making money. It's about making sure that no one ever has the power to dictate your life because of it. Your next move should always be kept private. There's a certain power in silence, in keeping your plans to yourself until they're fully formed, fully in motion, and impossible for anyone to disrupt. People have a way of projecting their fears, doubts, and limitations onto you the moment you share your vision. They don't always mean harm, but their words can plant seeds of uncertainty in your mind, making you question whether you're capable of achieving what you set out to do. When you announce your goals too soon, you invite opinions, criticism, and sometimes even silent sabotage from people who don't want to see you rise. The problem is that most people operate from their own experiences, their own failures, and their own fears. When you tell someone about your next move, they immediately start filtering it through their lens. If they've tried something similar and failed, they assume you will too. If they never had the courage to take a big risk, they might try to talk you out of yours. Even the people who love you the most, family, friends, even a partner, can unintentionally discourage you simply because they don't see what you see. They don't have your vision. They don't have your fire. And if you're not careful, their words can shake your confidence before you even get started. Then there are the people who don't want to see you succeed. They won't say it out loud, but deep down, they don't like the idea of you growing beyond them. Maybe they're used to seeing you struggle, and the thought of you leveling up makes them uncomfortable. Maybe your success would force them to confront their own lack of progress. Or maybe they've always viewed you a certain way, and watching you break out of that box makes them feel like they're losing control. These are the people who will smile to your face while secretly hoping you fail. The ones who will subtly plant doubt in your mind, not with obvious negativity, but with little comments like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Or "That seems really risky." They'll make you second guess yourself just enough to slow you down, just enough to make you hesitate. And sometimes that hesitation is all it takes to kill momentum. And let's not forget about energy. There's something powerful about moving in silence, about working on your goals without outside noise. When you keep your next move to yourself, you stay focused. You don't waste time explaining yourself, defending your choices, or seeking validation from people who don't understand your vision. You put all your energy into the work, into the process, into making things happen instead of talking about making things happen. Too many people get caught up in announcing their plans and seeking applause before they've even done the work. But the truth is, talking about your next move doesn't bring results. Action does. The best way to show people what you're capable of is to let your success speak for itself. When you move in silence, when you work behind the scenes and let your results do the talking, there's nothing for anyone to criticize, nothing for anyone to doubt. You don't have to waste time convincing people of what you can do. They'll see it for themselves. And by the time they realize what you've been building, it'll be too late for them to interfere. That is the power of keeping your next move private. That is how you stay in control. Your past does not define you. It is a collection of moments, choices, and experiences that have shaped you, but it is not who you are today. Yet, one of the biggest mistakes people make is feeling like they owe their entire history to someone just because they are in a relationship. They believe that love means full disclosure, that honesty requires laying everything on the table, even the things that no longer serve them. But here's the truth. Some parts of your past are yours alone, not because you are ashamed, not because you are hiding something, but because not everyone deserves access to the version of you that no longer exists. When you tell someone everything about your past, you give them the opportunity to judge you through a lens they haven't lived. They don't know what you were going through when you made that mistake. They don't know the circumstances that led you to that decision. They don't know how much you've grown since then. All they see is the version of you that existed in that moment, and no matter how much they claim to love and accept you, there's always a risk that in the back of their mind, they will never truly see you beyond it. People say they want honesty, but what they really mean is they want the version of honesty that makes them comfortable. They want to know enough to feel like they understand you, but not so much that it challenges how they see you. The moment you share a past mistake, you run the risk of being labeled by it. Maybe it's something you did years ago, something you've already forgiven yourself for. But once you say it out loud, it becomes a permanent part of the story they tell themselves about you. You could be the most loyal, loving person in the world today, but if you admit to a mistake from your past, there's always a chance that in a moment of insecurity or anger, it will be thrown back in your face. And that's the thing. People don't always weaponize information immediately. Sometimes they hold on to it, storing it for later. Maybe everything is good right now, and they tell you it doesn't matter, that the past is the past. But then one day, during an argument or a moment of doubt, suddenly it resurfaces. Well, if you did that back then, how do I know you won't do it again? That is the risk of oversharing. Not because you were dishonest, not because you did anything wrong, but because you gave someone access to a part of you that they didn't need to hold. The most important thing to understand is that healing is personal. If you've made peace with your past, if you've done the work to grow from it, you don't need someone else's permission to move forward. You don't need them to validate that you've changed. You don't need to explain yourself in order to be worthy of love. The right person will love who you are now, not who you used to be. They will judge you by the way you show up today, by the way you treat them, by the way you've evolved, not by a version of you that no longer exists. Some things are meant to stay in the past, not because they are a secret, but because they no longer define you. Growth is about moving forward, not constantly re-explaining who you were. You do not owe every part of your story to someone just because they want to know. Your past belongs to you. Your growth belongs to you. And the only thing that truly matters is the person you choose to be today. Not every emotion needs to be shared. We live in a world that glorifies radical openness, where people believe that true love means revealing every thought, every fear, every frustration the moment it arises. But the truth is, emotional self-control is one of the most powerful things you can have. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to express it immediately. Just because you are upset, hurt, or insecure in a moment doesn't mean you need to dump that emotion onto someone else. Holding space for your emotions and processing them before sharing is not dishonesty, it's wisdom. Emotions are temporary. What you feel in a heated moment might not be what you feel an hour later, a day later, or even 5 minutes later. But if you react too quickly, if you say something out of anger, frustration, or insecurity, you can create damage that lasts far longer than the emotion itself. Words cannot be taken back. You might feel differently tomorrow, but the person who heard your emotional outburst will still remember what you said. This is how unnecessary arguments escalate. This is how trust erodes over time. It's not always about what happens in a relationship. It's about how we respond to what happens. And when you give in to every passing emotion, you allow your feelings to control the relationship instead of allowing your wisdom to guide it. There is power in emotional discipline. It doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means owning what you feel before sharing it. It means pausing before reacting. It means recognizing that not every thought that crosses your mind needs to be spoken, and not every feeling that arises needs to be turned into a conversation. When you learn to sit with your emotions, you gain clarity. You start to understand which feelings actually need to be addressed and which ones are just passing storms. Because not every moment of frustration is a crisis. Not every fear needs validation. Not every worry is a red flag. Emotions are just emotions, and they don't need to be externalized. When you constantly share every little doubt, fear, or irritation, you start to create unnecessary tension. If you bring up every single thing that bothers you, even when it's small and insignificant, you exhaust not only yourself, but also the relationship. Your partner starts to feel like they can never get it right, like they are constantly walking on eggshells. Over time, that dynamic can turn something beautiful into something draining. It's not about bottling things up. It's about learning which emotions need to be addressed and which ones simply need to be released on your own. And here's something most people don't realize. The more emotionally disciplined you are, the more respect you command. People are drawn to those who can regulate their emotions, who don't crumble under every wave of insecurity, who don't let every passing frustration dictate their actions. When you show that you can handle your own emotions, people see you as steady, as grounded, as someone who is in control of their own life. That is attractive. That is powerful. That is the kind of presence that makes people take you seriously. Emotional maturity is about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. It's about choosing your battles wisely. It's about understanding that not everything needs to be discussed, not every feeling needs to be validated, and not every thought needs to be heard. The ability to hold your emotions with strength and grace is not just a skill, it's a superpower. And the moment you master it, you become unshakable. Your weaknesses are not for public consumption. Not everyone deserves to know the places where you struggle, the battles you are fighting, or the vulnerabilities that still weigh on you. There's a difference between being open and being exposed, a difference between sharing and surrendering power. When you reveal your weaknesses too freely, you risk handing over ammunition to someone who may not have your best interests at heart. Even in a relationship, even with someone who claims to love you, there are certain things that should remain yours to carry and yours to conquer. People are not always as understanding as they seem. At first, they may listen with kindness, offering support and reassurance. But over time, the things you confided can start to shift the way they see you. The world respects strength, and whether we like it or not, People respond to confidence more than they do to vulnerability. A man may say he wants to know your struggles, but if you make him too aware of your weaknesses, there is a chance, whether intentional or not, that he will begin to view you as someone who needs to be fixed rather than someone who is already whole. There is also the risk of those weaknesses being used against you. In the beginning, everything is safe, everything is loving. But as time passes, as challenges arise, people change. Someone who once reassured you may one day throw your struggles back in your face. What was once a moment of emotional connection turns into a weapon during an argument. You trusted them with your deepest fears, and now those very fears are being used to hurt you, to control you, or to make you feel small. That is the danger of oversharing. It's not always immediate and it's not always obvious, but once you have given someone access to your weak points, you have given them the ability to use them in ways you never anticipated. Strength isn't about pretending you don't have weaknesses. It's about knowing who deserves access to them. It's about recognizing that not everyone is capable of handling your struggles with care. It's about keeping certain battles to yourself, not because you're hiding, but because you are protecting your own power. The moment you start handling your weaknesses privately, you start gaining control over them. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your pain, to comfort you, to reassure you that you are strong enough. You realize that strength doesn't come from sharing, it comes from overcoming. Not everything in your life needs to be processed through another person. Some things are meant to be worked through on your own, in silence, in discipline, in growth. You don't need to announce your struggles in order to heal. You don't need to expose your wounds in order to be worthy of love. The right person will see your strength without needing to know every time you've fallen. They will respect you for the way you carry yourself, not just for the weight you've had to carry. Power is in restraint. Power is in knowing when to be open and when to remain quiet. Power is in understanding that not every battle needs to be spoken about to be won. The moment you stop handing over your weaknesses to others, you stop letting them define you. You reclaim control over your own story, and you become someone who is not just seen, but respected. At the end of the day, power is not just about what you share, it's about what you choose to keep to yourself. A woman must understand that not everything needs to be disclosed, not because she is being secretive, but because she is being wise. There is strength in silence, in moving with intention, in protecting the parts of herself that are most vulnerable. Your financial independence, your next move, your past, your emotions, your weaknesses. These are not things to be carelessly given away. They are aspects of your identity that require discernment, that should only be shared with those who have earned the right to hold them with care. Too many people think love means full transparency, but true power comes from knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. The woman who guards these things does not live in fear, she lives in control. She is not easily swayed by doubt, not easily manipulated, not easily broken. She stands firm in her strength, knowing that the less people know about her vulnerabilities, the less they can use them against her. So, hold on to your power, protect your independence, move in silence, trust yourself above all else, because the strongest women are not the ones who share everything. They are the ones who know exactly what to share, who to share it with, and when to let the world see the results rather than the process.